Do it.
Hey guys, welcome to our Facebook Live. We are here with the co-founder of UPPAbaby. His wife makes sure that we say that because she is also the co-founder.
Yes.
I am going to take a second to start sharing this video on our other social channels. I want you to introduce yourself. So tell us your name, who you are, and how you guys started UPPAbaby.
Hi, I'm Bob Monahan. I'm co-founder of UPPAbaby with my wife and myself. We've been around for about 10 years at UPPAbaby, and we started with the Vista stroller. Back in the day, my wife and I, we had a 1 and a 3-year-old, and there really wasn't any great options for us. There was high-end, hard to understand European product, and there was stuff that was available at mass market that was kind of cheap and sage green with Winnie the Pooh on it, and there was nothing really great for us. So It was a great time for us to get in the business and start with a stroller for our kids.
And so you started with strollers, and how did you transition to car seats?
Well, our strollers are modular. Everything has options for our customers, and we always like to innovate. We have reversible seats that can snap in. We have bassinets that can snap in. We were pioneers with that. And in the early days, we didn't make an infant car seat, so we made adapters to fit other companies' car seats into our stroller. And after a while, we felt it was best to give our customers the whole UPPAbaby experience. So we developed the infant car seat that snaps in without adapters and integrates nicely into our stroller.
Okay, so we are here because you recently announced that UPPAbaby is manufacturing the first, to our knowledge, car seat without any added chemical flame retardants. I know that you're very careful to say it is naturally flame resistant.
Exactly.
And I do want to make a correction. Earlier today, hopefully you were watching, we did a combustion test, and as I was ad-libbing, said something to the effect of how they get around the standard without adding chemicals is, that's not accurate. They do pass the test, they do abide by the standard, they do it without chemical flame retardant. So it's how you pass the test. And if you can tell us a little bit about how you do that.
Well, how we pass the test without the added fire retardants is we have a merino wool fabric layer heat bonded to the foam. And it gets tested as one piece. And natural fire resistance of the wool keeps the whole integrated material from burning at a rate that would fail the test.
Right.
So the bonded system passes the test, and it burns at a lower enough rate so that NHTSA and FMVSS are all happy with our standards.
Sounds good. Now, for more information on that, you can check below on the page. We posted a combustion test earlier today, so that's there for you to view. But this is really for all of the moms out there. There are a lot of moms who have been asking for, looking for a car seat without chemical flame retardants. And until now, the manufacturing industry representatives have said, listen, we can't make a car seat without flame retardants to meet the federal standard because it requires this open flame test. And in order to meet it and make a car seat that you could afford, that doesn't cost $1 million, we have to add these added chemical flame retardants. Right. You have now come up with a way, it's not a cheap car seat, but you've come up with a way within a price point that is comparable to other car seats in kind of your realm to create this without flame retardants. So let's talk first about, well, let me get right to some of the questions from the moms. So one of the questions we got earlier today, right now you're only making one model, it's an infant car seat. Are there plans for, she asked, a flame retardant-free toddler car seat? My understanding is toddler is not the right term, that it's a convertible car seat that fits a toddler or an infant. And so are there plans to make a convertible car seat that is flame retardant-free? Yeah.
Well, we don't always discuss our plans. We don't reveal our plans like any major company, but it's definitely a logical extension. We have the infant car seat, we have the stroller, and we want to keep our family in UPPAbaby as they grow. So we really are looking forward to launching a convertible car seat in the future. We want it to be great, it has to be ready, it has to be good. So we're not always the fastest to market, but we are definitely thinking along those lines. And when we do launch it, we are really feeling great about our Henry fashion, which is our wool fashion, merino wool fashion, which is the natural fire resistance. There's a good chance that we'll also extend that into
but you'll also have a flame retardant free version of it. So yeah, so to be clear, UPPAbaby currently, as I'm a mom with twins, I need this. I'm going to read the comments as I turn around. We need convertible car seats. Marissa says this. Yeah, so Marissa, UPPAbaby doesn't currently make convertible car seats. They only make the infant car seat. So once they make their first convertible car seat, which they may or may not be working on because they won't disclose, but it sounds like they probably are. One of those will be a version without the flame retardants, with this wool fabric. So we have folks who say, I'm concerned about the fabrics and the supplier of wool. Will the wool be RWS, and that stands for Responsible Wool Standard Certified, or have a similar certification?
Okay. The Responsible Wool Standard is new news to me. We're new into the wool business. And however, we are OEKI-TEX 100 certified, which monitors the processing of the fabric and makes sure that there's no unnecessary or unsafe chemicals added. So that's monitored by the OEKI-TEX 100 system, and we'll look into this other standard as we get more familiar with wool, and if it's appropriate, we'll certainly pursue it to make the product even safer.
Okay, and I'm just going to turn around. Marissa says that will be great. Thank you, Marissa. So the other question was, does the fabric have any certifications? And OEKI-TEX is one of them.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the fabric certification. All car seats have flame. This is another question. All car seats have flame retardants. I have the UPPAbaby Mesa. Am I pronouncing that right?
Perfect.
Mesa. Do you know which flame retardants are in the Mesa?
We have flame retardants in our other non-wool fabrics, and we really take a lot of time to make sure that we do those as safe as possible. So I can tell you there's no chlorinated or brominated chemicals. Other than that, for what's in the fire retardant, the best place to check is on our website under Mesa under frequently asked questions. But again, within that realm of having to add fire retardants, we're very careful of making it as safe and safe as possible.
Okay, and they told me, UPPA told me that they will be adding more responses to that frequently asked questions section. So if there are questions that we get asked tonight that we can't answer, you can go to their website and they'll answer more of those there. So we have another question. I heard the infant seat was tentatively going to be coming out in February, then I heard March, then you mentioned today April during our combustion demonstration. How firm is the April date?
The April date is fairly firm, but the bottom line is we won't sell the product until it's ready. We won't cut corners, we won't ship product that's not right, so we're making sure it's right. So right now April's our best date. I checked on it 2 days ago before I left Boston, and everything's looking prime for that to be the time, so hopefully we'll be there for you at retail at that point.
Okay, another question has been, will the seat be available for pre-order? A lot of the moms who are pregnant right now are saying, I got to buy a car seat, I want this to be the one, but I can't order it yet. So will it be available for pre-order?
I'd love to tell you to do that, but I don't recommend it. You need the infant car seat when you come home from the hospital, and you want your baby to be safe driving the car. So that's the #1 criteria. And so we'd hate to be, if we get delayed again, for you to be stuck without a car seat, and that would make us feel terribly. So please wait till it's available at retail. When it's available at retail, that's a great time to go and get it.
Okay. And let's see, I was also wondering if it's been tested by a third party like Duke or the Ecology Center for flame retardants or other harmful toxic chemicals since, quote, this is not me saying this, since, quote, we've been deceived by other brands before.
Okay, that's a great question, and we're familiar with the Duke Center and the Ann Arbor Center for Ecology. In fact, we went with them, we tested with them before we launched because we knew how passionate people were about this and how if we somehow didn't pass their requirements, it'd be a big problem. So we waited until they bought into it and they support it, which they do, and then now we're comfortable to launch it. And we'll use them on an ongoing basis to make sure that we stay without any fire retardants or any unwanted chemicals.
And I will say that's actually how I found out about it. I think it was initially Duke who mentioned that they were testing your car seat and that you had voluntarily sent them samples before you brought it to market. And then Ecology Center, obviously, in their most recent report, just recently talked about it as well. So let's ask a couple more questions. As referenced here by this mom, certainly there have been many that have claimed that their car seats were, I think at one point, flame retardant free, and then it was, well, we don't have the brominated or the chlorinated, and then they were later tested and found that they did have those chemicals. I think in many cases it wasn't intentional. It was a manufacturing issue. In some cases they denied that there was an issue. In other cases they immediately said, oh, it was a mistake and we're going to fix it. And certainly that impacted the outcome of the, I think, public perception of the product. But with anything in manufacturing, I mean, all of these car seats are being manufactured overseas for the most part. Quality control has to be an issue. So how do you handle quality control for a product that's being manufactured overseas? And then what do you do when something accidentally does go wrong.
Yeah, we don't accept anything that doesn't fit our standards, whether it's in Asia or whether we find out here. We're more than willing to reject any product that doesn't fit our standards, because whatever, it's not fair. It's the understanding that the customer has of our product, and we won't shortchange them. With regards to the fact that we're making ours out of wool, which is naturally fire retardant, so that fabric alone, and it's bought for suits and other things, that's the way it's made. So you don't have to really worry about fire retardants leaking into it. Whereas when you're buying fabric that's for car seats, sometimes your vendor may use a cheaper version of it or sneak some other material in, and there's always that risk. But I think that when we stick with wool, which is natural, they'll keep making it the same way. They have no reason to add fire retardants to men's suits or merino wool or anything like that.
Right. Well, now I will say that the retardants are generally added to the foam, which is the most flammable portion. And in your case, the foam is actually laminated to the fabric, so I'm assuming it's comes from a different vendor.
Yeah.
But it would be the foam that would likely be the most likely culprit for flame retardants. But you're testing. I mean, how often do you test these?
We'll test every batch. We'll have a third party. Nobody's affiliated with us. Nobody's affiliated with the factory. They'll come in and test every batch. And also, we're aware that consumer advocates will be buying the product in the future and trying it out. So we can't really risk that bad publicity. So we'll always make sure that each batch is tested, and we won't ship it if it is any issue with bad chemicals in the foam or the fabric. And
I should note, full disclosure, we have not tested the UPPAbaby car seat yet. I'm going to actually wait until it's on the market and we buy one from a store so that we're not asking them to give us one that, not that we don't trust you,
right.
But as a consumer investigative reporter, we have been burned before, no pun intended. Yeah. So just so you know, folks, when it is available, we will be testing it. We have a comment here. Are most baby car seat makers what are most using to make the seats flame retardant? So
I mean, I can't really comment on that, but I mean, they have to pass the standard, the fire retardant, the standard, and up until now, they've had to use various chemicals to pass those standards, and that's what moms are so concerned about. So again, I can't say what they're using, but we're providing options to our customers that here's a natural way of doing it versus adding the chemicals. And we support the people that have pushed us to do this. I actually really believe in it. So, well, let's go back to that.
We talked about it a little bit earlier today during the combustion demonstration, but where did how did you start working on a flame retardant free or naturally flame resistant car seat?
Well, I mean, the way that works is we're in a building in Boston, Massachusetts, and I sit about 25 feet from customer service. In customer service, we meet weekly, but we also just talk all the time at the water cooler. And the passion that we were getting from retailers and consumers about the chemicals and fire retardants was just coming through, and we were like doing everything we can, and they were angry at us, they were angry at everybody. And it really kind of bothered me for a while, but then I kind of said, well, listen, why don't we give their passion? Let's give them something. So we challenged our R&D department, like, make a fire retardant free car seat. Show me what it looks like, show me what it costs, and maybe we can sell it. And they did that, and it really came out quite beautiful, and it's a minor premium, and it satisfies a lot of people that now have an option to buy something that way.
I think that, I mean, I have interacted a lot with some of these moms who've been looking for an alternative car seat without flame retardants, and I will say they're very passionate about it. So I can understand how it might be a catalyst for you to do this. So let's talk a little bit about chemical regulations. Some of the things that I thought were really interesting today is how your products vary from country to country, right? Because every country has its own regulations, not only chemical regulations, but more importantly, car seat regulations and car seat safety. And I should pause for a moment and say that your child should always be in a car seat. None of this conversation should ever be interpreted to imply that your child is in any way safer in a vehicle outside of a car seat. They should absolutely be in a car seat, and the most important thing about a car seat is that it protects them in a crash, so that the car seat is the right size for their weight and their height. If they're an infant, then an infant car seat, and then once they outgrow that, into a convertible car seat. And I can see people wanting to keep their infant in an infant car seat that doesn't have flame retardants longer than they should, because they don't want to put them in another car seat. That is absolutely not safe to do. You should not do that. So there, for instance, you were saying the UK has actually stricter regulations, and there are more flame retardants. They even require them in strollers.
In strollers. We don't sell a car seat in Europe, so I'm not totally conversant on what their standards are for car seats. But unfortunately, they have flame retardant requirements that date back to the 60s when moms used to smoke or whatever. And it's just, unfortunately, once those things are in there, they're in there for a long time. So our strollers in Europe, I mean in UK, have to have those. And every market's different. Canada's different from the US, Australia's different, Europe's different. So we have to change our product for every market.
Right, and we should note that the current flammability standard for car seats was actually also introduced back in the 70s when parents used to smoke, although it was introduced for the vehicle itself. So it's for the seats, the interior of the car. When car seats were made mandatory about 10 years later, they got looped into it because anything that's manufactured for the interior of the car has to abide by the same standard. And the standard actually says that it is intended for an ignition source like a cigarette or a lighter. So obviously, hopefully your 5-year-old children in car seats are not smoking or playing with lighters or matches. But there are still some states that where it's not illegal to smoke with your child in a car. So theoretically, a parent could be smoking in a car and a match could fly back and hit the child, or a cigarette ash. And so some will defend that the standard is still necessary for that reason. But yes, so even the car seat standard was initially instituted back when cigarettes and lighters were a standard source of ignition. And again, for more on this, you can check out the video we have posted just below or just above this on the Facebook pages. Both it's on at Julie Watts TV, at newsmom.com, and at CBS San Francisco. So those are most of our questions from the parents. I'm just going to do one more check on the other pages to see if anyone has posted on a separate page. But I think really the biggest question that we've been receiving is, why is it only available for this car seat, for the infant car seat? And why is it taking so long?
I don't know. I mean, for the industry, again, I can't talk to that. But for us, as soon as it became, this is what we call like an unmet need. So when it became, we had a passionate group that has an unmet need. I mean, that's like the green light to develop a product. And as soon as we really became aware of it, I was like, let's stop fighting these people and let's just give them what they want. And so it really, quite frankly, it wasn't quite as hard as we thought it was once we got behind it and we did it. So I'm not sure why it's taken this long, but for us, we did it after whatever, a year and a half or so of people complaining that there was no option. We wanted to provide them that option.
And we should note that your car seat will cost $350. It's about a $50 premium over your other car seats, which are still on the higher end for car seats, comparable to the Orbits and the Klex and the Nunas, which are that kind of $200 to $400 range. So most Americans can't afford a $200 car seat. There are $50 car seats and $100 car seats out there that some of the broader mainstream manufacturers make, and they're the ones saying, listen, we can't do this. We can't manufacture a car seat that the average parent can afford without retardants. But it sounds like you're kind of entering into this realm first to see what works. Do you think that there is a world in which every car seat someday could be made in this manner? Affordably?
Yeah, I mean, as we talked earlier, typically new innovations come in at the higher price point. Those customers can afford it, and that innovation is rewarded. Much like, I guess, back in the day, only some cars had backup cameras that you could see on you. Now, like, everybody's got to have it, and like the features gradually trickle down. So if this is something that everybody values, not just certain people in the cities or whatever, everybody values, I see a path that it could get adopted at the medium and the lower price points.
Okay, and I'm just checking one more time for any comments. If you guys have any questions that you would like to ask the founder of UPPAbaby, go ahead and ask them now. I guess let me just go over a couple more since we're still doing the Facebook Live. I want to reiterate some of the questions that some of the moms asked earlier today on Facebook in case they're just tuning in. But the big question is, are there plans for what they're calling a flame retardant-free toddler car seat? It's actually called a convertible car seat. And your answer is?
Again, we were always looking to grow the brand, and right now we just make infant car seats, but we want to keep our customers in UPPAbaby for as long as possible. So it's very logical that we are looking into making a convertible car seat. And if we do, then this fabric seems to be getting a lot of attention, people a lot of demand. And I guess why stop it at the infant? That we'd always people could stay chemical free on through their up till they're 4 years old in a convertible car seat.
So the answer is they don't make any convertible car seats yet, but if and when they do, they will likely be a model that has the Mesa fabric. And you were talking about certifications. A lot of the green moms are concerned about the certifications. What is the fabric certification?
Okie-Tex 100.
Which basically looks for 100 of the most notable concerning chemicals that are produced during the manufacturing process, from dyes to flame retardants to things of that nature.
Exactly.
And then a lot of moms want to know what flame retardants you're using in the Mesa, the current car seat that does have flame retardants. It was the Facebook Live. That was my husband calling, by the way. Hi, honey. I'm live on Facebook. You should be watching. So a lot of the manufacturers, if you ask them what flame retardants are you using, the response is, well, that's proprietary information. It always has been, which is why places like the Ecology Center and Duke have had to kind of reverse engineer and test these car seats and figure out what flame retardants are in them, and then they release that information. And you know, I don't think the intent of any of these was ever to say that your kid is going to get cancer or be permanently harmed from their car seat, but rather that consumers should have a right to know what is in the car seat and a right to choose if they want to purchase a car seat with those products in it. And there just wasn't a lot of disclosure. So I will ask you again, I know it's a tough question, I'm putting you on the spot, but what can you tell me about the flame retardants in the current car seats?
Well, again, like, nobody really wants to put flame retardants in their seats, but it is required to pass certain standards. Within the realm of flame retardants, I guess there's some that are more dangerous than others, and we're always kind of chasing that down. We have spent a lot of time over the last couple of years to make sure that of those chemicals we're as safe as possible. So within that realm, there's no chlorinated or brominated chemicals, which to my understanding are like the real bad guys in that area. So we get it done with chemicals, but not some of the most concerning, worrisome chemicals. And
you know, I think a lot of people are quick to be tough on car seat manufacturers. I mean, to me it seems, especially after a year of investigating car seat companies, it's a really tough business. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of people who are kind of critical of what you're doing. Certainly safety is the #1 priority of a car seat. Will that car seat hold up in a crash? And now there's this added element of concern of, you know, what chemicals are in this and how is that impacting my child? And a lot of it is unknown. And that's an even bigger concern is, well, if we don't know how it's going to affect my kid, then I don't want it in there until we do know how it's going to affect my kid. So for you as a manufacturer, and I'll let this be the last question unless we get a couple more questions on Facebook, is what is the most challenging aspect of this for you? I mean, people online often say, well, let's just make our own car seat. It's not as simple as just making your own car seat, right? Tell me a little bit about what goes into this.
Yeah, I would consider the threshold to getting into making car seats one of the hardest things, primarily because of all the safety requirements, the liability issues. You know, you're not just making blankets or bottles here. You are actually putting something in a car that has to keep the child safe, and no matter what brand you are, there are going to be accidents. So there's going to be testing, and so you really need to be on it. So the product needs to be great. The tooling to manufacture is very expensive.
And tell me, the tooling is what?
Tooling is like the metal pieces that come together that you make you pour the plastic into, that makes the bucket, makes the shell. All the plastic parts are made by metal parts where you squirt the plastic in. So that's the tooling. Can cost $1 million
just to make the tooling.
Yeah, and you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in testing. You know, you have to crash test over and over again. If you ever change a part of it, you have to crash test again. If any change in material, you got to test it again to make sure. So there's a lot of people looking at car seats, rightly so. I mean, because every seat has to be safe, every seat has to be good. So it's a lot of barriers to entry, and it's a risky environment, but somebody's got to do it, and we're happy to do it. We're comfortable with that.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time, and I have to say this took a lot of guts to come out here and let us ask you questions live on Facebook and light your car seat on fire live on Facebook. So clearly you have a lot of confidence in your product. You know, once again, this is not an advertisement for your car seat, but an opportunity for people to ask questions that they may not be able to get answered easily otherwise. And so thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming out. Folks, if you have more questions, you can always post them on my page, and we can follow up with UPPA, and of course I can ask them follow-up questions. So anything you guys want to know, let me know, and we're going to go ahead and finish. Good night, guys.